Jeremy Sockman here with another look at a movie from way back when. This one's from smack dab in the middle of that granddaddy of all world wars, WWII. That's right, I'm talking about To Be or Not to Be from 1942, and this one's got a lot to say and only a few ways to say it. So let's take a look. To Be or Not to Be is set in Poland just before the German invasion. Joseph Tura, played by Mr. Radio himself Jack Benny, and his wife Maria, played by Carol, hold that plane on Running Late Lombard, are rehearsing a play making fun of Hitler and those big bad Nazis.
Heil Hitler! Heil Hitler!
Heil myself.
A handsome pilot, Stanislav Sobinski, played by Mr. Unsolved Mysteries Robert Stack, confesses his love for Maria and manages to really get Joseph's goat. But before things can get all love triangle, Hitler invades and Poland is occupied.
Attacked without a word of warning by a ruthless conqueror, Warsaw destroyed for the sake of destruction.
There's a bit of the old spycraft being played abroad, and one Professor Selitsky comes to town with a list of all the Polish airmen fighting against the Germans, looking to hand it off to big old Fritz. Well, Maria and the gang can't let that happen, so they play a big ruse on the man to trick him into thinking he's at Gestapo headquarters. But uh-oh, things go sour and he's shot. So Joseph's gonna have to pretend to be the professor when he meets the big bosses. Well, of course that gets complicated when the body of Selitsky is discovered, but Joseph's a real acting god and manages to sneak by.
Heil Hitler.
Heil Hitler. And how's the professor?
Fine, thank you. And how's the colonel?
Excellent, may I?
Now, old man Hitler himself was coming to town for a big shindig, and the gang needs a way out, so they use all their skills to trick the Fuhrer and his cronies, spouting out some Shylock and, spoiler alert, sneaking off in his own personal plane. These boys are national heroes, and Joseph gets to play the role he's always dreamed of, Hamlet, in a country not under the boot of those pesky Nazis.
Or not to be. That is the question. Whether 'tis nobler in the mind to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune.
Now stop me if you've seen another movie with a bunch of actors pretending to be Nazis, to trick them into stopping a double agent, and making everyone think they're Hitler and his mistress, only to put the screw to the bad guys in the end and win the war. Seems to me like they make these things every week now, but what sets To Be or Not to Be apart is the same thing that holds it back from being a classic. We all know the way for a movie to be truly timeless is to have something to say that affects people in all time periods and cultures. I'm talking about movies that address the fundamental truths of humanity. Where To Be or Not to Be falls flat is in its insistence on setting itself in a very specific time, place, and situation.
We're in Warsaw, the capital of Poland. It's August 1939. Europe is still at peace. At the moment, life in Warsaw is going on as normally as ever.
How many of us were in Poland in the years of 1939 to 1941? I'm guessing what? Maybe 10% of you? Hardly the numbers needed for a truly universal story. Sure, maybe this yarn was good to the people of 1943, but 75 years later, it's like reading something in iambic pentameter.
If you prick us, do we not bleed? If you tickle us, do we not laugh? If you poison us, do we not die?
It moved me to tears.
Consider the fact that they make the Nazis out to be buffoons. That might have flown in 1943, but we have the benefit of hindsight. I don't know about you, but I don't see what's so funny about a bunch of jerks that killed 20 million people. I mean, did they ever hear of a little thing called the Holocaust? Come on. I guess old Ernst Lubitsch, the director of this one, just thought the brutal murder of anyone and everyone not German was a real laugh riot. Well, there's a whole bunch of mass graves in Europe that just might disagree with you, Ernst.
How dare you put me in this position? I can't rely on anybody.
So in the end, while To Be or Not to Be may have been a hilarious comedy when it came out, those days are long gone. For a so-called funniest movie of all time, it sure drops the ball with its history. It's movies like this that you just can't pull out of the dustbin of time, wipe off the crumbs, and pass off as a classic in the more enlightened days of any time after 1944. Sorry To Be or Not to Be, but you're just not worth remembering anymore. And hey, Ernst Lubitsch, open up a history book and learn what really happened. It'll do you some good. I'm Jeremy Sockman, and I'm giving the tone-deaf political comedy To Be or Not to Be a hard pass.
Well, it's a natural thought.
Oh, a natural thought.
Well, I hope you don't misunderstand. I always, well, that is, you see, you see, Colonel, I hope you don't doubt my... Heil Hitler!
Heil Hitler!
A laugh is nothing to be sneezed at.